Hello and welcome to this episode of Therapist Today. I'm Myra Khan, the founder of the MCAPN, and it's lovely to have you join myself and Wajda today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe this video so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming latest videos. So, as I've just mentioned, I'm joined today by Wajda, so we're going to be hearing all about Wajda and her work as a therapist. So welcome, Wajda, how are you?
Oh, thank you, Myra. Thank you for this. I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
Good, lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. As I've just said, we're going to kind of be getting into thinking about your work, thoughts around what made you want to become a therapist, but also really speaking to the audience today about the actual work that you do, and also maybe some hints and tips that you want potentially trainee therapists to know about, giving them an insight into your wonderful hindsight in the journey that you've been on, but also perhaps some thoughts and advice to clients or people that are looking to enter therapy. Any thoughts on what might support them or what you'd want them to know as well? So we'll be covering kind of various aspects of therapy today in our conversation. But let's kind of establish kind of our starting point, really. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Wajda. I'm based in West London. I have my private practice. I started in January 2022, and it's very recent kind of private practice, but I was trained in Winchester in Hampshire, and I had my clients over there working with agencies, and I work with Mindworks UK as well as a placement counsellor. But this private practice is really thriving, and I can see the beautiful connection with my own self as well as with clients. And there's diverse range of different kind of the work, client work, as well as the supervision, all those. So I work with children, I work with couples, I work with adults. So I'm quite liking the idea of just knowing my own self, that where I'm drawn towards, and finally making decision that if there's any particular specification I would like to work with. But at the moment, it's much more diverse. I see client online as well as in person. And there are some clients who wants to work in kind of hybrid ways. So sometimes coming in person, sometimes they want online as well. Yeah.
Well, straight away, a couple of thoughts that come to my mind is one, I can imagine some people watching this video today will then, in hearing about you and your work, will be like, oh, Wajda sounds like the perfect therapist for me, or maybe somebody that I want to work with. So it's great to know that you work both in person, face-to-face in West London, and also online. So perhaps if people can't get to you in person, they can have online sessions.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But also then you've mentioned as well that you work with adults and couples and children and young people. We say CYP. You work with children and young people as well. So again, you have a real diversity in your client groups as well. And so the type of therapy you do also feels quite varied and diverse as well.
Yeah, it's very exciting with that diversity, because in every aspect I feel like diversity is such a beautiful kind of concept, and why not to thrive with that? And that's
great. Well, we're definitely going to spend some time thinking then about perhaps what that work actually looks like for you and what you're particularly interested in. But if I could for a moment kind of take us right back to the beginning of your own therapeutic journey, and what made you want to become a therapist?
Oh, yeah. So I was in India, and I was studying my bachelor's in psychology, and I was quite kind of intrigued and very compassionate and connected with that subject. And then I moved here. And in and out, I completed my bachelor's with psychology, but then there was a huge gap with the family, with the children, with other things in life. And I was sort of disconnected with that, right? So I had books in my bookshelf, psychology and connection regarding psychology, but not very much into the course or qualification with that. I had a very kind of traumatic experience with my health condition. So I was in the hospital and had near life and death experience there. And that drawn me to access Samaritans, to become a Samaritan listener. And that was intensive kind of course. And I loved the way the training happened. And one of the Samaritan listeners, as we were doing this kind of listening that day on our duty, and they just mentioned that, hey, Wajda, I see the compassion there. Why don't you try some training in counseling? Because he was himself counselor. And that gave me, can I do that? Is it possible? Because I was working as an admin in rape and sexual abuse counseling service. So I had a bit understanding around it. And that led me to access Middlesex kind of counseling training. And in Winchester, Peterson, and they do really lovely training there. And yeah, I embarked that journey. I quite connected with TA, humanistic counseling. So yeah.
What I'm really struck by in what you say is that that maybe at the start then it wasn't about, right, I had a goal to become a counsellor, but actually it's through life experience. And I know as a therapist myself that often that's very common for people wanting to become a therapist, not necessarily because they go, well, I want to be a therapist when I grow up, but it's more a case of because of life experience, it influences then how we perhaps want to help others, or because we think actually this plays to my strengths, we have you're talking about like a near life and death experience in the hospital that led you to accessing Samaritans, that then led you, and it's kind of like it kind of just snowballs, and escalates in a way that leads you into then becoming a counsellor.
And just somebody in Samaritan, they're not counselor, but they are listeners. So it's not like they're intervening and asking different questions, but it's just somebody having there just to hear them out. And I saw that kind of, there was evidence and witness that how, not knowing that it has changed something, but at that moment, at least, people are feeling okay with their own self.
Yes, so absolutely. So even if Samaritans isn't counselling, but Samaritans in its own remit absolutely provides an essential service and support to people that are on the other end of the phone. And I suppose that's the other thing, isn't it? That so then Samaritans has its remit and then counselling has its remit, and you could see how you could evolve from being a Samaritan, evolved, and you then became and trained as a counsellor.
And in the training, working with all the colleagues, sharing stories with each other, why they want to become a counsellor, or if there was any concern around family issues and all those, and knowing that how much confidentiality, boundaries, they are so important. That was something amazing for me, the boundary, because in general we tend to become rescuer and there's no boundary. And having self-care, boundaries, and respect for self as well. Not only respect for others, self-respect is huge. So those things were quite profound to me.
Yes. So again, what I'm really hearing is that to train when you went through your training experience and to train as a counsellor, then it also helps you. It also helps you think about yourself. It's not just a focus on, well, what can I do for the client? It's also about, actually, I'm learning about myself here, and I'm learning what I can do to help myself.
Massively.
And so on this kind of timeline journey that we're doing, so you then trained as a counsellor, and then of course you start working with clients. So talk us, can you say about what was your experience then to actually then start working with clients?
So my so with placement clients as well as now, the experience is amazing. The experience is, so I will have 20-minute kind of initial consultation, having opportunity for myself and them to know that if we can work with each other. So I have capacity, do I have understanding regarding the concern? Am I trained enough? for them to know that if they feel comfortable with me, and it can be some clients, they come with different language other than English. So I speak Urdu, I speak Hindi, so they have that understanding as well. And regarding ethnicity as well, regarding faith, and also, so there's diversity there. And then they can decide that, okay, if you are trained in this area, or if you're qualified or not qualified. I'm qualified, but in general, they have the opportunity to ask me and clarify what exactly is going on. Then I give them website, I give them my counseling directory, or I'm in Muslim Counseling and Psychotherapy Network. I'm there as well. So they get the opportunity to know me more, even after speaking. And then there's clear contract, and non-verbal and verbal contract from both ends. So that is respect. And then in therapy, what I feel the most important for me is that therapeutic bond, the connection. And with connection, each and every client, what I've noticed that there's a very unique, different sort of culture is created. Or we can say language is created. And counselor, for me, as me and them, it's like there's understanding that even though the sentence is not complete, they will understand what I'm talking about, and I will understand what they are talking about. It might take some time, but with some client, it can be quite quick. With some, it can take time because of the relational rupture they had earlier in very, very early years in childhood trauma. But then recovery, noticing that recovery is possible after the first stage of emotional regulation and distress tolerance. The work is focused in that. And then in between the reasoning and understanding and being curious, what is going on? What is underneath that stuckness? What is underneath that anger? What is underneath that anxiety? And then once the meaning is made up and we are quite aware what exactly is going on, then we can work on that. And the final, not final result, but yeah, the progress or the growth. Just noticing and witnessing is quite powerful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that gives a lovely overview and summary of kind of what clients might expect when they come to work with you. And what really stood out for me is you're going, actually, we have this 20-minute consultation at the beginning to actually figure out if we're a good match. If I can work with you, client, and client, if you want to work with me. So I'm thinking about people that are watching this video that are potential clients or going through the process of looking for a therapist, that for you, Wajda, you offer this 20-minute consultation, even before any commitment or contract actually working with you. This 20 minutes gives both of you a flavour of each other and of whether you're a good match or not. And I think that's really important for people to know, because I can imagine that for lots of clients, they might come in with an assumption that, well, if I contact a counsellor and if I book in, that's it, I've got no choice, I must see them. And so these, what we call consultations, some therapists also call them assessment sessions.
Yes.
That these are really good opportunities for clients to come along and see how it feels to be working with you, but with no commitment then to actually sign a contract and actually to engage in full counselling sessions.
Yeah.
So that's a lovely overview sharing with us of kind of that process that you walk your clients through. You mentioned then that, of course, then you work with a variety of client groups, children, young people, adults and couples. And as you said earlier as well, that because of the different client groups, that you actually work with lots of different issues as well, and what we might call presenting problems. Is amongst all of that then, do you have a specialism or something that's maybe not a specialism, but a particular area of interest, particular topics that you enjoy working with or are interested in working with?
Yeah. At the moment, I'm purposefully, maybe, I don't know, because I'd really need to know more. But what I'm noticing is that more clients from, because I work with sexual trauma in Winchester, and it's the client, it's child sexual abuse, or adult sexual abuse, recent or previous, earlier. That is one thing, and then domestic abuse, and then emotional abuse, then racial abuse, racial trauma. So a lot of trauma work. And then the training with Carolyn Springs training I've done, and throughout the counselling, kind of being employed by at the start, that's the agency's name, they provide tons of training in that. So, and they take us as we are trauma informed therapists or counselors. So yeah, that is there. What I'm noticing that clients are coming even apart from that agency, even private practice clients, they're coming with those concerns and those that they want to either heal or embark into the journey of recovery. So they are coming. And some work, I work with many kind of neurodivergent clients, and just to work with what that has caused kind of distress and confusion, maybe not because they are not okay, because society and the way things are, it's not very inclusive, or it was not very inclusive, and that caused a lot of distress and anxiety in them. So working on the impact. So that is thing. And then relational as well, what I'm noticing that there's many work around relational rupture. So something around in the past experience child when they were very young. So mom or dad, there was something was missing, like deficit love and care, and there was no secure base was not offered. And they end up accessing them because they wanted to fill that deficits, end up getting into those sort of unhealthy kind of romantic relationship or promiscuity maybe, and then getting all sort of abuse and getting involved in all those things. So those clients are also coming. So yes, it's nice. I'm experiencing that quite a lot.
Yeah. And so just to kind of recap, so experience as a specialist, interest is an expertise in trauma work, abuse work, in neurodiversity or neurodivergent clients, and then what you've just mentioned at the end there around challenging, difficult relationships that have resulted in relationship rupture. So really kind of rich, really in-depth, what feels like really core work that you're doing with these clients. And so what I'm thinking about is about the audience watching this, that if they're sat there watching this and going, oh, actually, that's perhaps an experience I've had that I could do with some support in. I think the real message for me in what you've just said, Wajda, is the very fact that you specialise in these areas, and the fact that then you work with many clients that have unfortunately experienced these very horrific, traumatic experiences, that for anyone watching this that goes, actually, that's me, to know then that they're not the only one. The very fact that you do this work is reflective of there are unfortunately lots of people out there that have these struggles and these challenges and these traumas, and there is somebody like yourself that they can come to support them through it.
Oh yeah. Well, healing is possible, recovery is possible, and there need to be willingness from my end to have that. Am I curious enough to try to understand what exactly is causing that hurt in them, and then working with each other, working together, co-created therapeutic space. That's so important. And if some transference is coming from my end to them, yes, we can talk about it, we can openly discuss that. So having that trust with each other is so important. But some clients, they feel, hey, Wajda, I don't think I can work with you. Absolutely fine. I understand that. Yeah,
it has to be a good match from both people, from both yourself and your clients. And if it's not a good match, actually part of our responsibility as the counsellor is to say, actually, we're not a good match, but we can then signpost them or refer them on to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So based on all of your years of experience of working with clients then, and now in private practice, so you're getting lots of people inquiring, you're being approached directly by clients. what then have you come across? What might be the common things that you've come across then that you think, oh, I wish clients knew this about entering therapy? What are the kind of, not necessarily, it's not about tips and tricks or anything, but what would be kind of key information then that you think, I wish clients knew this about therapy so they could either make the most of it or they could make the best decision about going for therapy?
Yeah, one thing is coming to my mind is that terms isn't necessarily it started to come in. But one thing, what I can say here now is that you have taken the step to access and then be not. I'm not saying, I'm not nudging that they'd be proud of that, but that's an amazing, huge step, because when you come to counseling, you are coming and connecting with your own self. It can be quite scary sometimes because, oh, I don't know what might emerge and what might come out. But yes, that's quite difficult. But hey, bear with, with the whole situation. Things are going to be fine. Things are going to be okay and all right. And I'm going to be willing to be with you in all those difficulty, and we can explore together and we can work that out. However, just saying now I'm thinking, saying is easy, but believing is quite hard. But yeah, just letting them know that trust the process. Yeah, one of my tutors, she used to use this a lot. Trust the process, Wajda. So yeah, trust the process. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm smiling because I'm going, as a tutor myself, that's what I say to my students. I'm always saying, trust the process, because I think there is something about taking that leap of faith to not only take that courageous step into jumping into therapy, but then you're entering something that feels unknown, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable, but you've got to trust that what we're offering as counsellors, the the therapeutic process we're offering clients will help you. Yeah. So it's to have that belief in your therapist and in the work that you're doing together.
Yeah.
So I think that's really helpful for clients to know that. Thank you for sharing that. So what I'm kind of thinking about is like flipping it on its side, really, or flipping it over. So what we've just spoken about is what was helpful for clients to know. Again, based on then your years of clinical experience and training as a therapist and working as a therapist, what perhaps, what would you like, based on your hindsight, what would you like trainees or people that think they want to train as counsellors, what do you think would be useful for them to know? So essentially, what would you like to have known when you started your journey?
Yeah. One thing always comes to my mind, that it is going to be very emotionally exhausting. Because I've done previous, study, done masters in human resource and other courses, and I felt that intense. And yeah, the procrastination was quite vivid and full on and quite somatic. I could feel in my body. So yeah, I'm not saying that it is going to be extremely difficult, but it is going to be an emotional journey. And the more we get into that, not dirt, but maybe mess, and pull out and tease out and then process them together with your colleagues and with tutor and with whole group process is so profound in these courses, then the result is so beautiful and amazing. Amazing. All those pictures when we see the road to recovery and the trees and mountains are there, they all will come quite full on. It's amazing. It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah. So there's something about acknowledging how beautiful and powerful the experience is, but also it asks so much of you emotionally and to be prepared for that.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So recognizing then that, and having gone through it firsthand yourself, that you've gone through this very emotionally demanding and challenging journey. Are there ways in which somebody can prepare for that then? What do you think might be useful for people to do prior maybe to starting a course, or maybe either before they've started the course or as they've started the course?
Okay.
Is there anything?
Yeah. So one thing is that if making sure that you are organized in understand, because there will be tons of paperwork, submission, assignment, and exams and all sorts. So be prepared with that. If there's some sort of struggle there, work on that, and then have support system available for you. Unfortunately, some of them, they don't have it, so try to access wherever you can. And yes, I mean, I think most of the training, there's guideline to have a therapy, so that is also important. Constant therapy. I mean, I am in therapy even, you know, after even trained, so I think that's something valuable, and use that rather than avoiding it. Initially it can be quite not sitting with in present, not being present in therapy, because it's quite full on. But yeah, utilize that, use it.
Yeah,
valuable.
Yeah. So starting on your counselling training, what I'm really hearing is two very key aspects of this. One is from a kind of student, actual trainee perspective, from a student academic perspective, be organised, understand what the course is asking of you, literally in terms of assignments and academic progress and what you need to achieve, but also be prepared to engage in the work that the course requires of you. And then simultaneously alongside that, it's also about being prepared for looking at yourself, being prepared to being on that emotional journey. And I completely 100% agree with you that if anybody is thinking about becoming a therapist, go and be a client first. Get yourself into therapy and be a client, because only by being a client will you actually experience what it is to be in that therapeutic room before you start your training. And kind of astonishes me how many people actually go and train as a therapist without never having had personal therapy. And so they're asking to do something that they've never actually experienced before. So I completely agree then that, you know, go and have some personal therapy, see what it's like, see how you experience it. And then to keep that up during your training. As you said, most courses will ask you to have therapy throughout your training, but it's definitely something that we kind of continue doing even after we've qualified. And then the other thing I suppose I'm thinking about then is, based on your experience of training, your experience now of working as a therapist, is there a kind of, to end our interview today, really, I'm thinking about, is there kind of one thing or anything that's really stayed with you about what you've learned from having gone through that journey and working as a therapist? What any kind of key life lessons have you learned from your journey?
I'm okay, you are okay, that sort of life position. That's, for me, is really beautiful, that no matter what, we all are okay. And things are going to be fine. That's having reassurance with self, and people with faith, they will have that connection with, you know, Allah or God, that yes, I'm here and I'm kind of grounded. But yes, people without faith, they can have different ways of understanding that I'm okay and you're okay. So that having reassurance that I'm here, and as I mentioned, reassurance with yourself, and trusting others as well. And it can be quite difficult, but yes, other people might be maybe you know, sometimes they do certain things with relational kind of trauma, but then there's reason for that. And if you're embarking into that okayness with each other, try to understand self first, and then you can understand others. That's why I don't know where I went there.
No, well, like what I'm really feeling and what you've just said, what I've really connected to is like the level of compassion. What you've learned from your journey is a level of compassion for yourself, but as well as for other people. So beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing and letting us into your life as a therapist and your experience of being a therapist. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for joining us and watching our episode of Therapist Talks today. And I look forward to all of you joining me again for a future episode, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Bye for now.